Incredible reunion. Billionaire woman discovers twin daughters and ex-husband after 6 long years. Sarah stared out the floor-to-ceiling window of her sleek Manhattan office, the bustling city below seeming to pulse with life. She was at the top of her game, a self-made billionaire who commanded boardrooms and made headlines. But as lightning lit the New York skyline, her heart felt as heavy as the storm clouds rumbling overhead. 6 years since her life shattered in a divorce, she buried herself in work to escape the void that echoed in her chest. Yet tonight, it was a void no amount of stock options or accolades could fill. "Sarah, you're on in 10, her assistant called, snapping her back. With a practiced smile plastered on her face, she stepped into the conference room, a fortress surrounded by glass walls. But beneath the confident exterior, her mind spiraled with the weight of what was missing, a family torn apart by ambition and the painful shadows of unfulfilled dreams. When had the pursuit of success overshadowed her ability to love? Before she could ponder further, her phone rang, cutting through the tension like a knife. The voice on the line delivered shocking news that staggered her. Twin daughters, conceived before her marriage and now at the tender age of 6. Joy bubbled alongside an unexpected guilt that made her stomach churn. Could she, a billionaire, truly be a mother? Were these girls aware of her existence? The thought left her breathless, feeling the pressure mount within her as the image of them flashed through her mind. Little lives she had never been part of. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each passing minute left Sarah filled with urgency. She envisioned their faces, unaware of her billion-dollar achievements, and felt a rising panic. What if they rejected her for the riches she'd amassed? Would they see her as anything more than a walking checkbook? The social stigma of wealth pressed against her like an oppressive weight. Just as the pieces began to fit together, Mark re-entered her life, as unexpected as a blaring siren in the quiet of night. The man who had once filled her days with love became the ghost haunting her nights. He was struggling, she heard, a dedicated teacher barely scraping by. How could he possibly understand the labyrinth of guilt that now consumed her? In a busy cafe, Sarah faced him, the setting a stark contrast to the intimacy they once shared, and yet the emotions were palpable.
"Do you have any idea what it was like?" she spat, anger boiling over. With each word they exchanged, feelings they thought buried sprang forth like weeds in an untended garden. Yet, as Mark revealed the truth about his health struggles, Sarah felt the walls of her world shake. Regret washed over her like icy rain. The revelations hounded her while she wrestled with the decision looming ahead. With her heart constricted in her chest, Sarah reached for her phone. She hesitated, each ring echoing like a countdown to possibilities unmoored. What if they wouldn't pick up? What if she had lost them before she even had a chance? The moment before the call connected simmered with the weight of a world seeking to redefine itself. This was not just about reconnecting with her daughters. It was her final shot at mending the pieces of the life she had sacrificed for success. As the phone continued to ring, Sarah's mind raced with turbulent thoughts. Each chime was a reminder of her isolation. The luxurious office that once offered her solace now felt like a gilded cage. The prospect of failure gnawed at her, threatening to unravel the composed facade she wore like armor. What if the girls saw her as nothing more than an echo of the success she had pursued at the expense of their relationships? Finally, a voice cracked through the static of her anxiety. "Hello?" It was a woman's voice, warm yet tentative. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. This was it. "Is this Amelia?" she managed to ask, emotions constricting her throat. "Yes, who is this?" the voice replied, concern lacing her words. It's Sarah, your mother." There was a moment of silence, stretching into infinity, heavy with myriad unspoken questions. Sarah's heart raced. She had anticipated this moment, yet had never truly known what to expect. "You're not supposed to call," Amelia finally said, a hint of accusation in her tone. Sarah winced.
The innocent disapproval cut through her like a blade. I know, and I'm sorry. You deserve more than what I've given you. Her voice trembled, each word infused with the weight of 6 years lost. But please, can we meet? I want to know you. The response was slow in coming. I'll talk to my sister. The line went dead, leaving Sarah staring vacantly into the Manhattan skyline. For a brief moment, she had hoped to hear laughter, to feel the warmth of her daughters in her life. Now only a chill wrapped around her heart, thick with the realization of how far she had fallen from the bridge of familial connection. The days that followed were consumed by planning. Sarah was a master strategist in business, yet personal relationships stitched from emotional threads felt like an entirely different game. How do you win over children who didn't know you? She scribbled ideas furiously, listing potential meeting spots, activities that might resonate with 6-year-olds. Would they prefer ice cream or a day in the park?
It felt foreign and overwhelming, this collation of desires competing with her anxieties. Tension fluttered in her gut, rising in unprecedented waves. The longer she waited, the longer the humiliation of her absence loomed like a shadow. Mark's image visited her thoughts uninvited, a vivid reminder of where her choices had led. He had dedicated so much time to providing for others. Could she muster even a fraction of that empathy for her daughters? The day of the meeting arrived. Sarah dressed meticulously, too aware of how every detail mirrored the life she had built for herself. Sanctuary office, tailored suits, and impeccable reputation. Yet as she surveyed her reflection, the question echoed in her mind. Who was she without the accolades, the wealth? She arrived at the park earlier, dread rooting her to the spot. Every family she saw brought a painful reminder of the connection she craved. After an icy half-hour that felt eternal, she spotted them, 2 small figures grappling with the mysteries of life, unaware of how much their biological mother had been struggling alongside them. She took a breath, steadying herself against the tide of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. But just as she prepared to take that first step toward them, she caught a glimpse of Mark, standing at a distance, watching her with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. The moment of truth had arrived, but it brought with it another question. Was she ready to face both the daughters who had unknowingly longed for her and the man she once loved who still possessed a piece of her heart? In that heartbeat of decision, realization settled deep within her. This was no longer only about the girls. It was about her reclaiming the threads of love woven through the tapestry of a life she had nearly lost. Would she make a choice that could change everything? The silence between Sarah and the girls felt insurmountable as she finally took a step forward. Each footfall echoed with a blend of anxiety and anticipation. Every instinct screamed at her to flee back to the safety of the office, away from this emotional battlefield. But she pressed on, her heart thudding painfully as she approached her daughters. Amelia? Hannah? Her voice was thick with unspent words, raw and tremulous, barely rising above the hum of the park. The girls turned, their expressions flickering between confusion and hope. Who are you? Amelia repeated, arms crossed defiantly over her small chest. There was a mix of courage in her stance and vulnerability in her gaze. It was a stark reminder of her own childhood, when she had waited for affection from a mother who was often absent. Once again, Sarah felt the crushing weight of judgment, though this time it wasn't just about her past mistakes. It was a glimpse into the shards of their shared existence, painfully real and exposed. I'm your mother, she choked out, the truth heavy on her tongue.
I know I've missed so much of your lives, but I want to change that. I want to be here now. What do you mean, be here? Hannah asked, her voice small but fierce. You didn't even want to call. The girls were wary, and Sarah understood. In their eyes, she was a stranger, a whisper of a figure they had been forced to forget. It twisted in her gut, but she also felt a spark of determination ignite within her. She couldn't back down now. Let me show you who I am, she pleaded. I've searched for ways to connect with you, to become a part of your lives again. Amelia glanced at Hannah, seeking solace in her sister's steadiness. The uncertainty in their eyes sparked a sense of empathy that Sarah had almost forgotten she could feel. She was not just a failed mother in that moment. She was a woman yearning to bridge the chasm time and distance had carved. Drawing a shaky breath, Sarah rummaged through the small bag she had brought along, revealing a bright, well-worn sketchbook. "I know you both love drawing," she said gently. "I used to draw too. Want to show me your favorite pictures?" Hannah's curiosity shimmered against her distrust as she took a hesitant half-step closer, her little fingers itching to embrace the art supplies. It was a small victory, but to Sarah it felt monumental. As they began exchanging colored pencils and sharing their artwork, Hannah drawing imaginative creatures and Amelia sketching the trees around them, time melted away. For the first time, laughter mingled with the tension as unscripted moments of joy began to bridge the distance between them. But amidst the lightness, Sarah felt the weight of Mark's gaze drain Saturna from across the lawn. It was not just the love they once shared that haunted her, but the bitterness of past choices. The drained hope that had long swirled around them both seemed to hang like the raw threads of her own inadequacies. "Mom?" Amelia's doubtful voice cut through her reverie, and Sarah realized the importance of not only claiming her identity as a mother, but also confronting her past and embracing the future that was being redefined before her eyes. The shadows of regret were lurking just behind her, but she had ignited a flicker of belief in the faces of her daughters. Would this newfound energy sustain her as she continued to unravel the tensions woven into the fabric of their intertwined lives? Yet the question loomed larger. How would Mark fit into this fresh chapter? Would he be a supporter or an obstacle in her quest for reconnection? As the sun dipped lower, casting a radiant light over their tentative reunion, Sarah felt both exhilaration and fear knotting in her stomach. In their laughter, she saw a possibility, but as she turned to Mark, an unsettling thought grasped at her. Would she find the courage to reveal the truth of her heart, not only to her daughters, but also to the man who still held power over her past?
The warmth of the fading sunlight filtered through the branches, casting playful shadows on the grass. Sarah felt every beam resonate within her as she attempted to hold on to the moment with her daughters. Each shared laugh reinforced her resolve, yet her chest tightened with anxiety as she stole a glance back at Mark. He stood there, arms crossed, his expression unreadable, a fortress of emotions she had once known intimately, now foreign and intimidating. Hannah, ever the instinctive empath, noticed her glance. "Are you okay, Mom?" There was an innocence in her tone that pricked Sarah's heart with both tenderness and a deep, gnawing fear. I'm just glad to be here with you," she replied, her voice a fragile whisper against the overarching noise of the park. Whatever doubts tangled in the back of her mind began to fade slightly, overshadowed by the joy of engagement. "Show us how you used to draw," Amelia said, her defensiveness starting to soften. The command felt like an invitation to bridge their fractured history, and something within Sarah stirred, a flicker of hope wrapped in maternal instinct. "All right, what do you want to draw?" she asked, flipping through the sketchbook, feeling the faded pages under her fingers, the memories of skills left dormant yet still alive. Each page contained not just drawings, but a sense of self she had almost lost. "Can we draw a monster? Or maybe a dragon?" Hannah's eyes sparkled with mischief as she animatedly described the creature's wings and fiery breath. Amelia's initial skepticism faded, intrigued by her sister's enthusiasm. Sarah could see a moment unfolding, a shared interest, a fleeting depth to a connection which had felt so precarious a moment before. "Let's make it the fiercest dragon ever," Sarah exclaimed, her enthusiasm surprising herself. As she began sketching, the memory of her own dreams to create flooded back. This was not just about the girls, but also about discovering parts of herself. The pencil flowed across the paper, the strokes igniting long-buried creativity. Amelia leaned in closer, her defiance melting into curiosity as she watched her mother. "Can I try?" she asked shyly, holding out her hand for a pencil. "Of course, here." Sarah hesitated momentarily, conscious of her daughter's fragile trust. As the two of them drew side by side, creating a monster filled with colors and laughter, Sarah felt the weight of her past decisions lifting. She looked up to see Mark watching, an unyielding presence at the edge of their world. His resilience, a stark reminder of the life they once shared, served as both motivation and challenge. The sight propelled her inward, forcing her to evaluate what this reunion meant, not only for her daughters, but for herself too. "What do you think, Mark?" she called out, surprising herself at her own boldness. He shifted, a hint of surprise crossing his features, before he took a slow step forward.
"If you're really back for them, then I guess I'll have to accept it," he replied, his tone cautious but tinged with the echo of hope. "But trust is earned, Sarah." Her heart raced, uncertainty poised to entrap her yet again, but his words rang true. Just as she was working to regain her daughter's trust, she needed to confront the trust issues that would dance around her relationship with Mark. Could she forge a path forward while confronting the remnants of their past? Sarah focused back on the drawing, her daughters lost in their world of creativity. As she blended colors harmoniously, she initiated a plan. Connecting deeper with her daughters required fortitude, a commitment to vulnerability, and a willingness to expose her brokenness and bare aspirations to Mark. The unfinished artwork mirrored her own life, a canvas yet to be filled. But would she have the courage to pick up the brush and paint the truth? In that moment, she saw the possibilities glimmering like stars in a night sky, each one representing a chance for healing and connection. However, lurking just beneath her burgeoning optimism was the weight of uncertainty. Before she could respond to Mark, another truth bubbled to the surface, prickling at the edges of her resolve. What would she uncover about herself when she finally faced the most difficult demons of their shared history? As the last rays of sunlight began to fade, she realized the next step loomed before her, a confrontation with both her daughter's doubts and her own masked fears. The shadows lengthened, merging the outlines of the day into the gathering dusk. Sarah's heart beat sharply against the backdrop of laughter that now filled the air, her daughters' voices rising in harmony with their flattering imaginations. Yet the smile on her face felt tenuous, as if it were a mask concealing the storm within. As she reassured Hannah and Amelia about the dragon they were creating, the flicker of past regrets loomed larger within her, and a subtle tension began to take root in her mind. It was time to confront the truth of her past openly. Mark's guarded words echoed through her thoughts. Trust is earned. She swayed slightly, the concept wrapping itself around her. This was no mere romantic overture to rekindle, but a responsibility to build something meaningful with her daughters, and to reclaim a part of herself she had lost. To do that, she needed to acknowledge the complexities that hindered her path forward. "I'm proud of both of you," Sarah said, her voice breaking slightly as she watched them coloring their imaginative creation. "But I want to show you more than just how to draw. I want you to understand the stories behind our art, the emotions, the passions. Drawing is an expression of everything we feel." Amelia, ever analytical, tilted her head. "Like how you feel about Dad?" The innocent question was a dagger wrapped in tender curiosity, and in that moment, Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her. "Yes, and yes," she replied, her voice thick. She pulled in a breath, gathering the scattered pieces of her thoughts. "It's complicated, though. I haven't always made the best choices, and—" She paused, her own vulnerability hitting her like a wave, raw and unfiltered. "There are parts of my life I'm trying to figure out, too." "Like why you left?" Hannah's innocence shone brightly, yet it pierced straight to the heart of Sarah's turmoil. "Are you going to stay this time?" The question hung heavily, tainted with the sweetness of a child's hope and the weight of reality. The drawing materials lay between them, a tangible interlude to the fear that threatened to overflow. "I want to," Sarah responded, her resolve beginning to harden. "But it starts with being honest, with myself and with your dad." Mark stood silent, his arms still crossed, but the flicker of intrigue crossed his features. This was the moment she had both dreaded and longed for. In one breath, she steeled herself, channeling the artist she had once aspired to embody. "Mark," she said, her tone shifting to an urgency she hadn't intended, but couldn't retract. "I know I haven't earned your trust yet, but I want to tell you everything. I want to understand what happened between us and be real about it." He stepped closer, the distance lessening not just physically but emotionally. "You don't have to explain everything right now. I don't want to push you away, but I can't just forget." A surge of emotion washed over her, a mix of trepidation and anticipation, as the path she stood upon shifted beneath her. She felt vulnerable,
Each promise she wished to convey was intertwined with the haunting memories of their shared past. "Can we create a new story?" she suggested softly, her heart racing. "For us, for the girls. Can we try?" As the stillness enveloped them, she sensed the shift in the air, the magnetic pull of possibilities tugging at the edges of their shared history. But the reality loomed larger. Each commitment to vulnerability came with the burden of facing their shattered pieces. Their shared moment felt fragile yet pivotal. Sarah's mind raced with the impending challenge. Rescheduling the meeting to vocalize her feelings would require courage, a confrontation that could threaten everything she tried to rebuild. Looking back down at the unfinished dragon, she hesitated, the incomplete form mirroring her own legacy. Could they truly rebuild the foundation laid years ago? The lingering question lingered like an open wound beneath the new hope. Just as the shadows deepened, a figure approached from the outskirts of the park, shaking the exterior of her conviction. An unexpected encounter could dislodge everything she had started to forge, entangling her with yet another tangled branch of their past. Before she could reconcile the flutter of new hope with the thorns of yesterday, Sarah faced a new uncertainty. Would the future she envisioned withstand the turmoil of external disruptions? Or would it buckle beneath pressure, fracturing the fragile connection she now sought to solidify? The figure stepped into the soft glow of the setting sun, revealing a familiar silhouette that sent shockwaves through Sarah. Mark's gaze shifted to her, alarm flashing across his features as he instinctively stepped back, arms uncrossing in a subconscious show of defense. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice a protective whisper. The automatic concern ignited Sarah's internal conflict. She had just begun to open up. A different voice in her head screamed that this was not the time for distractions, yet her heart raced with a mix of urgency and apprehension. "Sarah!" The voice, both timid and authoritative, pierced the fragile atmosphere. It belonged to Claire, a former classmate, whose problematic past with manipulation had long been best left unearthed. Their connection had shifted dramatically over the years, and Claire was now known primarily for her ambition in the art world, a dream Sarah once shared. "What are you doing here?" Sarah managed, the words spilling out uncharacteristically sharp. "Just passing through. Thought I'd see what you've been up to," Claire replied, casting a sidelong glance towards Mark. "Looks like you've made quite the homecoming." Her insincerity was palpable, and in that instant, Sarah's resolve felt vulnerable, shaken by old resentments that echoed the very insecurity she was just beginning to confront. The sharp edge of envy cut through her, accompanied by the sickening reminder of dreams disrupted. Claire had flourished, while Sarah had been lost in the quagmire of her past mistakes. "I'm fine, thanks," Sarah said, recentering herself, pulling back emotionally, as if drawing an invisible line in the sand. She glanced at Mark, feeling an unspoken connection that was easy to misinterpret alongside Claire's calculated curiosity. "Well, if you ever want to discuss art or showcase those skills again, I'd love to help," Claire continued, a saccharine smile plastered on her face. "I have connections that might be able to lend support." The mere suggestion made Sarah's stomach churn. Help from Claire felt like a betrayal to herself, a temptation to lean on someone who had never truly believed in her capability. What if accepting that band of support meant stepping back into the person she was years ago, the one who thought she needed the approval of others to validate her worth? Mark's expression hardened as Claire lingered, but the tension between Sarah's desire for independence and the need for connection was palpable. Was she ready to face this? To extend trust when she had only just begun to earn it from herself? "Thank you, Claire, but I think it's time for me to focus on my own journey for now," Sarah replied, feeling a simmer of clarity amidst the turmoil. She was forming her own narrative, crafting her own path forward. "Suit yourself," Claire retorted, annoyance flickering behind her smile. "But just remember, the art world is a competitive place. You don't have to take the hard route." As Claire turned to leave, her words hung in the air like a millstone. Triggered by reminders of the expectations she had once let define her, Sarah's emotion simmered, igniting a flame of determination deep within. Mark looked at her, a questioning glance that bore into the depths of her vulnerability. What did she mean by that? Sarah shook her head, refusing to let the shadows of the past invade the moment. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here with my girls, and that's my focus." His expression softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "And what about us?"
The air around them rippled with possibilities again, the uncertainty now brimming with questions rather than dread. She knew this was the moment to solidify her stance, to redefine not only her relationship with Mark but with herself. Drawing on the energy from the encounter, she took a deep breath, channeling the artist resolve she had embraced earlier. We create our own stories now, starting with honesty. I need to face my own shadows first, before I can share this journey with you. But the truth loomed larger than her resolve, and even as she spoke, doubt surged back, the shadows of her past now mixed with the fresh scars of Claire's words. As she turned away from Mark, thoughts traveled a tumultuous landscape of confrontation against insecurity. The time had come for not just reunion but confrontation, about her failed aspirations, her need for independence, and her limitations. The newfound determination brewed with anticipation, as she felt the weight of her decisions reinforce the foundation she sought to build. Would she have the courage to confront her own demons, laying bare the heritage of regret while navigating the emotional landscape of trust with both Mark and her daughters? With questions weighing heavily on her mind, she sensed the pivotal moment approaching, where personal choices would truly matter. A voice interrupted her thoughts, calling her name from beyond the trees. She turned, an unexpected flutter in her chest. Was it a burst of confidence, or yet another ghost from her past, waiting to pull her back into chaos? The decision to take control pointed her toward the confrontation she both yearned for and feared.
Sarah, the voice floated closer, mixed with the scent of damp earth and nostalgia. Each step towards its source felt as though she were treading through layers of herself she'd kept buried. What awaited her among the trees? A rekindling of the past, or a revelation of the future? She paused for a moment, her heart racing, an instinctive urge to retreat grappling with the driving force of intrigue. After years of running from her past, could she face the echoes that threatened her newfound resolve? She took a breath, whispering a mantra to herself. She was more than her past mistakes. Each word resonated like a drumbeat, punctuating her decision to confront whatever force lay ahead. As she stepped under the canopy, Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. In the clearing stood her mother, a figure she hadn't seen in years, her presence pulling Sarah back to the moments that had shaped her. The surprise filled the air with a heavy tension, a blend of excitement and fear. "Mom?" The word escaped her lips in a breathy exhalation, blending wonder and apprehension. Would this encounter bring solace or a fresh wave of disappointment? Memories surged, unscheduled yet unavoidable, and the magnitude of their shared history hung thick between them. Her mother's expression mirrored Sarah's mix of emotions, warmth laced with uncertainty. "Sarah, I didn't expect to find you here." The admission hung suspended, shrouded in an unspoken history that churned beneath the surface. A flood of questions surged through Sarah. Why now? And was it really a coincidence she lingered at this exact moment? Had she sensed the weight of unresolved feelings between them? "I need to understand why you left," Sarah finally ventured, her voice stronger than she felt. The words echoed in the silence around them, piercing the veil of hesitation. Her mother's gaze faltered, eyes drifting to the ground. "It wasn't what you think. I thought about what your departure meant, how it shaped me," Sarah interrupted, the knot of years knotted tight in her throat. "Everything I've done since, everything I've rebuilt, has been out of this brokenness you left behind." The confession hung like a pendulum, swinging both ways, revealing the raw edges of vulnerability that had been smoothed over with time. "I've made my own mistakes too," her mother replied quietly, as if sharing a deeply held secret. "But I'm here now, not to make excuses, but to understand you." A tenuous silence settled as Sarah felt the pull of hopeful rebirth and guarded skepticism battling within her. Was this a chance for healing, or merely another layer of deception? "Understanding doesn't erase the past," she murmured, recalling moments where she had felt abandoned during her most pivotal transformations. Yet the desire for connection, a fundamental human need, flickered within her. Mark's figure stood at the edge of the clearing, observing the reunion with quiet intent. The tension in Sarah's chest softened as she caught a glimpse of his steady presence, a reminder that support could exist outside of the past she was grappling with. But was it enough to break the cycle of mistrust that had haunted her familial bonds? A part of her nudged to turn back, to hide from this unexpected confrontation, while another urged her to embrace it, to face the truths that could either liberate or imprison her. There was so much left unsaid, questions unanswered. They all swirled like a tempest. "Can we start over?" her mother asked, eyes glistening with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Sarah's heart hung in a delicate balance. Every instinct warned her of the fragility of this moment, even as new paths unfurled before her. To confront her mother was to embrace a part of herself, yet still the shadows loomed large. What if this was the breakthrough she needed to confront her fears? But would forgiveness come easily, or was it just beginning anew with layers yet to be unearthed? Can she face the depths of her past while forging a path to a better future? Determined, she straightened her spine and took a step closer to her mother, ready to grasp the complexities ahead. But before she could respond, a crackling sound echoed through the clearing, drawing their attention. Someone else was coming. Another face from her past, perhaps? Tension coiled tighter in Sarah's heart, uncertainty fueling her as she braced herself for whatever revelation awaited. Would they be ready for this looming confrontation? The sound grew closer, breaking the fragile truce that hung between Sarah and her mother. Every snap of a branch and crunch of leaves amplified the tension, unraveling the moment of potential reconciliation. As Sarah turned her head toward the source, the familiarity of the approaching figure sent a jolt through her. It was John, her childhood neighbor, once a trusted friend, now the last person she expected to see. "What are you doing here?" she questioned, her voice taut like a drawn bowstring, intertwining fear and surprise with demands for explanation. John's face shifted from bewilderment to cautious understanding. "I didn't know you were back in town. I came to clear my head." He cast a glance between the two women, and Sarah could sense the questions swirling in his mind. "Just give us a minute," she snapped, angered by the intrusion on this pivotal moment. Yet, as John retreated a step, Sarah realized this was not just a disruption. It was an unwelcome reminder of her past, painted over with layers of regret and confusion. "Sarah," her mother's tentative tone drew her attention back. "Can we not let him interrupt?" Yet that small detail tugged at Sarah. Why had she assumed John's presence diminished what was happening between them? In her drive for resolution, she had overlooked how interconnected their lives had become, how her choices impacted others.
Was her singular focus on healing enough to ignite a connection with her mother? "Let's just talk," Sarah said, her throat tight as she gestured for John to remain close. "You deserve the truth, and so does he." Both their faces reflected surprise. Her mother blinked, while John's brows knitted together. With every admission about her life, her childhood struggle, her journey toward self-renewal, and the influences of their pasts, Sarah felt layers peeling away. The forest around them faded, the deep sounds of rustling muted as she laid herself bare. "You left when I needed you most. I had to build my life with the constant thought that I wasn't enough for you to stay." "It wasn't about you, Sarah," her mother replied, anguish flickering in her voice. "I was lost, drowning in a life I didn't know how to navigate. I didn't know how to parent." The weight of those words landed heavily. She had always assumed her mother's departure was an indictment of her worth. To rediscover that the exodus stemmed from her mother's own issues ignited a flicker of empathy within Sarah, yet it was entangled in the complicated fabric of hurt. John's presence became an anchor to reality. His gaze, earnest and curious, urged Sarah to face not only her mother, but also the very fabric of her life choices. "Your past shaped you, but it doesn't need to define you." His voice offered a balm that soothed the sharp edges of that moment. "Do you really think so?" Sarah's question emerged half hopeful, half uncertain. "I know so," John replied firmly. His honest conviction stirred something in her. Here was a man who had witnessed her growth, her struggles, and stood resolutely at that intersection of the past and potential future. Yet even as she began to feel the tight bonds of resentment loosen, a whisper of doubt crept in. What if she couldn't let go of the past? What if confronting these memories only dug deeper wounds? "Can all of this lead to forgiveness?" she pondered aloud,
the words tasting sharp and echoing in the stillness. The hope to bridge this remains with her mother felt precarious, teetering on the precipice of vulnerability and safety. Forgiveness needs to come from within you first, her mother said softly, her eyes shimmering like the early evening sky. Start there, and everything else will follow. In that moment, Sarah felt the future stretching out before her, a nebulous horizon filled with possibilities, some terrifying, others exhilarating. But just as she began to envision that horizon, encroaching footsteps drew closer, more urgent this time. The presence felt ominous, charged with an unsettling energy. "What now?" she whispered, dread creeping back as the hair on the back of her neck prickled. The stakes were rising. What new revelations awaited her in this unforgiving landscape of her past?
With her heart pounding, she braced for another confrontation that could shift her path irrevocably, forcing her to grapple with not just her present, but the threads binding her to the deeper complexities of her family. Before she could fully process the implications, the figure emerged from the shadows, someone who carried the weight of decisions far beyond what Sarah could have anticipated. Would this encounter challenge her newfound perspective or offer an unexpected chance for resolution? The figure stepped into the dim light filtering through the trees, revealing a man whose presence immediately sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. It was David, her estranged father. She had not seen him in years, and the last encounter had ended badly, laden with accusations she had not forgiven. "Sarah," he said, voice laced with an urgency that echoed through the woods. His eyes flicked between her and her mother. "What are you doing here?" The question emerged sharp and accusing, laden with the weight of their past. The air thickened with unspoken words and emotions. The tension tightened around them like a tightening noose. "Can we just talk, please?" David's tone was uncharacteristically soft, vulnerable even, as if he recognized the fragile threads binding them. "Talk? After all this time?" Sarah shot back, her heart racing. Memories flooded her mind. Anger, betrayal, abandonment, an avalanche of resentment that she had only begun to process. "Why should I listen to you now?" "Because I've changed," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here to apologize, to explain. I know I don't deserve your kindness, but I need you to know I've been reflecting on everything." Her defenses rose, instinctively guarding against the hurtful words that could so easily tumble out. "You left us when I was just getting old enough to need a father. How do you expect me to believe you now?" At that moment, she felt the weight of her past anchoring her, threatening to pull her back into the murky depths of unresolved feelings. Yet, as she glanced at John, who stood silently observing, a flicker of doubt lanced through her. Was it actually possible for someone to change? Could she afford to let hope seep into her hardened heart? "Please let me explain how I failed not only you but myself," David insisted, taking a cautious step forward. "I was in a dark place, and I put my selfishness ahead of my family. I couldn't even face my own demons, let alone yours." As his words sunk in, Sarah felt a strange battle unfold within her. The resentment that had nourished her resolve began to clash with a confusing sense of empathy. "You think words alone can change everything?" she finally asked, voice steady but laced with a raw edge. "I know they can't," he admitted, hands trembling slightly. "But I want to try. I want to earn your trust again, if you'll let me."
Each pulse of doubt that coursed through Sarah urged her to reject his plea outright, yet part of her longed for the semblance of a family she had secretly desired. How could she confront the possibility of that reconciliation? Could she dare to hope for forgiveness amidst this chaos? "Earning my trust is just the beginning," she replied, each word tinged with caution. "You'll have to confront the pain you caused, to do it openly, not just for me, but for yourself." Her mother's gaze darted between father and daughter, as if taking stock of unanswered questions. Sarah felt the churning within her, a cocktail of anger, hope, and curiosity. "Start by being honest about why you left," her mother interjected, her words firm. "This isn't just for Sarah. You must show her the truth of who you are." The crux of the matter lay bare. Conversation cascaded into uncharted territory, a fragile bridge forming between them. But Sarah sensed an impending choice looming: engage with the possibility of understanding, or retreat back to the safety of her constructed walls. The fire crackled nearby, and the acrid scent of burning wood mingled with the tension-laden air. She thought back to John's earlier words, "Your past shaped you, but it doesn't need to define you." Could she break the chains that bound her to hurt, or would she, in a moment of vulnerability, unearth a chance for renewal, a chance to redefine her connection to the lost parts of her family? "All right," she said, heart pounding, choosing courage over retreat. "Let's talk." The words tumbled out, carrying both resolution and uncertainty, igniting the stark awareness that this moment could be the genesis of a profound pivot in her life. As they settled into the shadows of the trees, the silhouettes of their pasts loomed large, heavy with unresolved hurt and unquenched yearning. Every word exchanged would matter immensely, setting the stage for whether healing could truly begin. Yet just as they began to speak, another figure materialized at the edge of the clearing. A chilling familiarity washed over her. Who else loomed in the shadows of her life, further complicating this pivotal moment of discovery and confrontation? The figure stepped forward, casting an unmistakable shadow under the last rays of sunlight. Sarah felt her heart drop into her stomach. It was Claire again, but this time a hint of vindictive glee danced in her eyes. "Well, this is quite the family reunion," she remarked sharply, clearly savoring the discomfort unfolding before her. "What do you want, Claire?" Sarah exclaimed, willing herself not to show the turmoil roiling within. She did not need another layer of interference, not now when she was finally beginning to confront her family's past. "Just here for a good old-fashioned family chat, Sarah," Claire replied with a hint of sarcasm. "You seem to be digging up the past quite a bit today. Didn't you learn your lesson the first time?"
Sarah's breath caught, the sting of raw memories flooding her awareness. She felt the tension in the air thicken, accentuating the conflict spiraling just below the surface. But this time, instead of retreating into defensiveness, Sarah recognized the power she had to reclaim the narrative of her own life. "Claire, your presence isn't welcome here," Sarah replied steadily, her voice firm. "I'm trying to navigate something important to me. I'd appreciate it if you took your judgment elsewhere." The words hung heavily in the air, an invitation for support rather than sabotage. "You think you can just erase the past? It doesn't work that way," Claire shot back, her tone dripping with bravado. "Don't you realize that confronting your parents won't fix the gaps you have in yourself?" "Maybe it's the first step," Sarah countered, surprising even herself with newfound authority. "Maybe I'm finally choosing to step into the light, instead of letting you control my choices with your cruel narratives." "Step into the light?" Claire scoffed, but her posture softened slightly. There was a crack in her armor. The uncertainty that had anchored Sarah in hesitation began to melt away. "And what exactly does your opinion matter? You're not part of this family," she asserted, feeling emboldened. David stepped forward, visibly shaken yet resolute. "Sarah's right, Claire. This is about healing and rediscovery, not your cynical commentary." "Is it?" Claire replied, feigning charm but failing to mask her annoyance. "Because it really looks like a mess, and you might want to tread carefully. Trust me, peeking into those wounds may not lead to the fairy tale ending you're hoping for." A weighty silence settled, heavy with every word that had thrummed through the air. Sarah's jaw tightened as she processed the toll Claire's intrusion took on her. But this was not just about surviving. This was about thriving, about casting aside selfless desires that had held her hostage for so long. She inhaled deeply, feeling an anchor within herself pulling taut. "I am shaking off the remnants of what's been done to me and choosing to reclaim my story. If you can't support that, you have no place here." Claire rolled her eyes but took a step back, sensing that she had crossed an invisible boundary. The shift in Sarah's energy rippled outwards, impacting not just Claire but the others present, leaving a palpable tension that seemed to vibrate with the promise of renewal. "Sarah," her mother spoke, her voice uncertain yet tinged with pride. "This strength, it's something I always hoped you would find." There was a warmth infused with longing, a shared realization blossoming amidst the encounter. Mark observed closely, a glance of approval shimmering in his eyes, perhaps recognizing the evolution that began to unveil itself. Taking a deep breath, Sarah turned back to her father and mother. "If I've chosen to be here, it means I'm committed. I want to hear from you both, your truths, your regrets. I want to chart a path forward, but I need open hearts in return. No more secrets, no more lies," she asserted, newfound resolution cutting the air like a sword. David nodded,
and slowly, with a tremor in his voice, he spoke. "You're right, Sarah. I need to come clean, not just to you, but to myself as well. I owe it to you both. I left because I felt overwhelmed by my own inadequacies. I thought freeing myself would free you." Her mother took a pause, her face a canvas of remorse and understanding. And I followed him, believing that I was seeking freedom too, not realizing I was suffocating the ones I loved. Sarah exhaled, each word an unraveling thread binding them. Old knots of resentment began to dissolve, revealing the path ahead. For the first time, she sensed that the truth could lead to understanding rather than more painful wounds. The sun sank lower, casting a warm glow between them as she found the courage to continue. "Let's work through this together, as a family should. I want to forgive, but I need to know you're truly committed to reclaiming your roles in my life." "Yes," David said, his voice steady. "I promise to work on being the father you deserved. I will strive to restore what trust I wrecked." Words echoed through the trees, and like sparks igniting in the darkness, hope glimmered dimly on the horizon. As Sarah locked eyes with each family member, Mark, her father, her mother, the realization dawned. She had emerged from the shadows, fortified by the resolution to embrace her complicated narrative and to forge the necessary connections. In this moment of reclamation, she claimed a solid ground, born of individual growth. Their past was still part of them, but it would no longer define their futures. Instead, they could cultivate a new legacy, one strengthened by honesty, vulnerability, and unyielding resolution. As the first stars twinkled overhead, she took a step into a new dawn, her heart swelling with the knowledge that what lay ahead would be fought for, every moment an opportunity to redefine family, trust, and connection on her terms. This was the time to break free of old patterns and become the architect of her own destiny. Now she finally felt ready to write her own story, where love, forgiveness, and connection would intertwine to create an extraordinary narrative. Everyone within that clearing, the shadows of their pasts and the glow of potential futures, could feel the shift. It was a promise, a commitment to reclaim, refresh, and reinvent, all standing together, confidence building between them. A new chapter had just begun. And in that moment, Sarah smiled. It was not just a facade. It represented a reclamation of purpose, a defining choice to step out from the shadows and fulfill the promise of her realized profound potential. This was the moment that could ignite the momentum for extraordinary change and profound transformation.
As they turned toward each other, their stories no longer overshadowed, but intertwined. Their new journey awaited, not as strangers, but as a family ready to rebuild and flourish. Join this incredible journey of transformation and witness the unfolding narratives that can only be shaped through courage and connection. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.